Right, what I'm going to demonstrate is the creation of a blockchain using Ethereum. And what we'll do is we'll create some accounts, and then we'll make a payment, a transfer, and then hopefully we'll be able to create a contract at the end. Okay, so Ethereum is a private blockchain network where we have miners, where the miners will mine through the transactions and then build the blockchain. What we can do with Ethereum is that initially we can create our Genesis block. So the Genesis block is the very first transaction that's ever created. So that initially will create some parameters, will allocate some credits to some users. So this is each user has a unique identity defined by this hex value, and initially we can create some credit for that user. And there are other things like the difficulty of the mining. This is a reasonable difficulty, but I'll actually reduce that down because that's quite high and it will take too long for us to be able to mine. Okay, so I'm going to use Windows for this, but it should all work in Linux and probably will work much better. So what we'll do is we'll just get started. So initially I have a JSON, so virtually everything is defined in a JSON format, value, and then add, so a value name, and then a value defined in JSON, and then we have the curly brackets to be able to define our data. So in this case, I'm going to define a difficulty of 2000 to make sure the miners mine the data quite quickly. So I'm going to create it from scratch, so there'll be no user setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to initially create the Genesis block, create a user, find out the user's ID, and then recreate the blockchain. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll create our blockchain. Okay, so here we go. So we're just going to initialize our blockchain, and that's it. That's it created there. We're now going to run our service for our blockchain. We're using Geth here to be able to create our Ethereum infrastructure. So if you see that I'm running it off the D drive there, that's where I've got lots of space. So my blockchain has been created over here. And there's, if you're interested, there's the chain there. Okay. Okay, so it's now running. There's no miners involved at this stage. So what I'll do is I'll connect to the console. Oh, sorry, I'll attach to the console. Okay, so here we are. There are no users actually defined on the system yet. So what I'll do is I'll just grab a few commands that I'll be using to copy and paste. Okay, and there we are there. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create some some users. So initially, if we want to have a look to see what users that we have, we see there are none. So I'm going to create a new user, and then what I'm going to do is recreate the blockchain and give that user a credit. So this will create the public and the private key required for that user. So just let me create it. So it's going to have a password of QWERTY. Okay, so we've created a new wallet over here. That's fine. So we go back and have a look to see who we've got set up, and we've got one user set up. So what I want to do here is I now want to give them some credit. Okay, so we'll just remember that username. That's the username there. And then we'll just exit from here and we'll just Control C here. And we'll go back to our Genesis block creator. And we'll give this user lots of money, lots of cryptocurrency. So they now have a balance of this here with a hex number. So that is now our user who should have some credit here. So we'll recreate the blockchain. So let's make sure it's all deleted. And I'll go back here. And we'll recreate it there. Okay, so it's been recreated. Now what we'll do is that we'll just run again, and then hopefully this time we'll have a user. Okay, and then we have, so what we'll do is we'll have a look at the balance, the credits that user has. Before it would have been 0, and the user would have had to mine to be able to get some credit. So we'll just have a look to see what their balance is, and it's a nice healthy balance here. Okay, so they have this amount of credits there. So the next thing we'll do is we'll create another account, and then what we'll do is we'll transfer money, cryptocurrency from this account, which has credit, into another account. So we'll just create another account here. And we now have a second user. We'll just take a little copy of their ID. Have a look to see the accounts that we've got in the system. So we've got 2 users now. And the first user has quite a lot of credits, and the second user shouldn't have any credits at all. So we'll just get this user here, and we'll have a look to see how much they have in their account. And they have nothing. Okay, so the other user has, oops, the other user has that amount of credits. So what we'll do is that we'll transfer some cryptocurrency from this account into this account. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to unlock the account that we're going to use so that we have the rights to be able to do the transfer. So here we are here. Okay, so I gave a password of QWERTY. So what we're going to do is we're just going to unlock that account. That looks fine. Okay, so it's unlocked. Okay, so we can see status there. So what we'll do is we'll create a transaction now, and we're going to send a transaction, send some money from our account into the other account. Okay, Okay, so this is the second account here. So we're going to create a transaction from first account into the second account, and it's a transfer of 100,000. Okay, so let's transfer that. Okay, so we have a transaction number there, so we can actually have a look at that transaction number just to see what it looks like. Okay, so it's not on the blockchain yet. Paste. Okay, so there's that transaction there. That was from to, and there's the value 1,000, and so on. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll start our miners. Okay, and because we've reduced the challenge, hopefully they'll be able to find it fairly quickly. And so that's good. So hopefully it's found our new transaction. And we can see the balance for this account has changed because we've started to mine and we're getting credits for mining. So let's have a look at the other account. And there it's there. Okay, so you can see here there is the successful transfer. So what I'll do is I'll just stop the miners. And I'll just go ahead and I'll do it again just to show you that it works. Okay, so there we go. Do the transaction again. So just to show, you see it's still 100,000 there. So I've got to start the miners. To be able to get the transaction to be added onto the blockchain. And there it's there. Okay, so we can see that transaction has went from 100,000 to 200,000. So I just stop my miner. So we made it too easy for the miners there. Make sure that when you're creating your Genesis block to make it much more difficult to create that. So you can see that we got some credit there for being a miner. Okay, so that shows how you make a basic transaction there, and how we can set up our miners. So we can look at the actual blockchain. So you can see the accounts that are involved in them. There's our current account that we're using, and this is you can see there's 67 blocks on the blockchain. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll create a contract, and what we'll do is we'll use the Solidity compiler. So that takes a JavaScript program defined as a contract, and then we compile it into this form here. Okay, so we're defining the compiler that we're going to use, and then we compile that into this format here. So this is a Web3 deploy, which is JavaScript type format. So we'll take both these files. You can see that the data here has been compiled. So this is our simple program. We're just going to show A when we run test2 contract, and then when we run test3, we'll add 1 onto A and we'll show B. So if we come back here, and what we'll do is that we'll create a new JavaScript file. So I'll call it my contract.javascript. Okay, so that's test2 and test3. Goes in here. Okay, so this is going to come from the account 0. We can specify this as a hex address if we want, but it's going to come from that web ETH account 0, which was the first account that we created. So it's got some credit, so it should be able to run this and to pay the miners. So we'll just save that. And just to see it is okay. So that's it there. That's what it looks like. So this has compiled the code into here. And now what we'll want to do is to be able to load that up. First thing that I'll do is I just make sure that the system knows who the default account is, and I'll run it from the first account, so it's got some credits. Okay, and now what I need to do is I need to load up the script that we just created, and let me remember my contract.javascript. Okay, so that's it loaded. My contract. Okay, so we get a true. So what I need to do is I need to unlock my account again. So just there, paste. Okay, so now I'll reload it. So sometimes it shows this that the gas block limit has been exceeded. So just let me modify my contract. That's too low. Okay, and that's worked perfectly. Okay, so we should be able to see here that our contract's been submitted. So it won't be mined yet because we don't have our miners started. So we'll just start them up. And that's great. So there we go. So we've found the contract and added that onto the blockchain. So just let me stop our miners. Obviously the CPU goes up because we're using the local machine here. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll have a look to see what our contract actually looks like. Okay, so it's test sol test3 is our contract, and test2 test sol test2. So let me check the syntax there. Okay, there's a first one. So you can see there's a function called val. There's our function, and there it is there. So we can tell what functions it has. And we'll have a look at 3. It has a show and also a val because it's inheriting from test2. So it has a val and it also has a show. Okay, this is where it's inheriting the. Okay, so that's a listing of that. So what we'll do is we'll call up the method. There's the result there from the contract, and we'll look at file here, and we see our value coming back. Okay, so that's been a demonstration of how we can create our own blockchain and create users, create a transaction, and then also create a contract.